it's all for play for still.
I think so. Do you want to bet against us?
Hello, Aston Villa fans, and welcome to For the Love of Paul McGrath podcast. We're going to take a little look today at Unai Emery's short-ish press conference that he has more or less just done for the Bournemouth game. A game that, again, takes on another level of importance given how close to the business end of the table that we are, number one, and second of all, how close we are to the business end of the actual season when everything gets decided. And it's these trips away to Bournemouth that we really need to. They're going to be tough. Obviously, going to the Vitality is always a tough station to have to report to. But because of our last two slip-ups at home against Everton and against what else did we slip up against at the weekend? Brentford. That means that, we do have to go to these places whereby, there will be an intimidating atmosphere. And I mean that because it's such a small, compact ground with not won't be an awful lot of travelling away fans there. And we will have to hopefully come out of there with a result. And also we would be fixture watching as well, I suppose, across the rest of the Premier League. But that's all, that's all part of the game. That's all part of being a fan. That's all part of the excitement of seeing where we are going to finish, I suppose, at the end of the season. And I think, look, most of you will have seen some of the notes on the press conference that has been had already. We'll listen to it from the horse's mouth himself, and we'll go through them. But it does seem like that the cavalry is on the way, that we do have some people back that weren't available for the last game versus Brentford, and hopefully that would be a net positive when we do go to Bournemouth this weekend, and hopefully come away with all 3 points. So without further ado, let's introduce the main man, the maestro, the mister himself, Unai Emery, and let's hear what he has to say. Give me a thumbs up in the comments there, guys, as well, if you can hear this. And again, as always, should I say, for everybody that's listening back to this on audio, I do apologize. I can only get it as loud as I can get it, and hopefully this is loud enough for everybody to hear. So here goes nothing.
Your team's responded to setbacks in previous weeks, Unai. What have you done this week to rectify the setback last time out?
Good afternoon. Yes, really, they responded fantastic. We had some problems at the beginning of the season, and more or less then we were being consistent. And the last two results at home is maybe the difficult moment for us, because we were feeling so strong at home and we were getting points. But is something can happen, because in Premier League it's very difficult to beat each team, each match. Of course, at home it's very, very important to feel strong and try to get a lot of points. But we must accept sometimes when we are not performing like we need and like we are usually doing, and we must keep going. And how we are more or less doing this week after those two matches we lost at home, more or less is a busy week. Working, speaking, trying to get our structure here in training ground strong. Of course, finishing the transfer window, more or less, again, we can set everything. And preparing the game for tomorrow against Bournmouth, because here is not stopping the Premier League. The consistency in 30 matches is our objective. Of course, we were bad at the beginning. We were fantastic during the process in November, December, even in Christmas. But again, with those two results we had at home, of course, during the matches playing at home, we played in Istanbul and we played in Newcastle, performing fantastic both matches. But we must react. We must get again our mentality. Of course, now transfer window always is disturbing us a little bit. In August, disturbed us now as well. But again, more or less the squad is now is close, and we are focusing now the match tomorrow, of course, with the difficulties we are facing in each match.
Well, that
A lot to kind of unpack in that answer. And do you know what? In fairness, he did a good piece there. Look, I think, when you come up against a press conference like this, and a press conference at any stage, we know that Jacob Tanswell has said it before. We know that John Townley has said it before, that Emery isn't a huge fan of doing press conferences, specifically not ones for Europe, and specifically not ones, I think, for away days, because he'll be straight on the bus, I would imagine, after this to get down to the South Coast for Bournemouth tonight. And I would imagine that they're going down tonight. I don't know what the situation is, but he got out ahead of an awful lot of questions, I think, that would have been asked there. First of all, he kind of references, our losing our last two games at home, from our home form being such a strong point. Specifically, we were relying on it. We were doing so well, both home and away in November and December. He referenced that too. You mentioned that it's been a busy week, talking, getting the structure right, explaining what he wants to do, and getting right for this game. Reference the wins that we've had away in Newcastle and in Fenerbahce, coming off the back of a home loss, and we need to replicate that too. And then lastly, he referenced the transfer window, and the fact that the transfer window is a disturbance for him. It's interesting. I'm going to go a small bit tangential in this one, because you often hear people, when there's a loss or when we don't get a player in that we were supposed to get in, kind of like Conor Gallagher, often hear people ask the question, well, when is Unai going to get sick of it and leave the club? And I think it's really interesting, the fact that he fronts up to the transfer window piece, and you can take it in two ways. I know that it would be evidence for some people that it's a frustration, it's on his mind, and it's something that he's not happy with, and he wants to get out from underneath those constraints. But the way I take it is that it's not like these constraints are a surprise to him. It's not like he's unaware of what can and can't be done in the transfer market. I think Unai Emery every single manager would like to have a fluid transfer market. They would like to have fluid movement of players, as and when they need to. But I think Unai Emery has put his hand up in the past and said, we got to work with what we have. Points on the board are what he wants. Goals are what he wants from players. It's not goals from a specific player. It's goals from players, regardless of who they are, as long as they're wearing the colours of the team that he's managing. And I'm not being hyperbolic or being too kind of optimistic or too claret and blue tinted glasses when I say that, because there are obviously clubs that Unai Emery would love to manage that don't involve Aston Villa. But it's not as simple as saying that he will just jump there because of transfer constraints and so on and so forth. He's been at clubs before that have had transfer constraints. He's been at the richest club in the world, arguably, in PSG. And, he's seen both sides of the coin. So he's old enough, he's mature enough, he's experienced enough to have been around the block from that point of view. And I think structure, as he always says, and process and control, I think, are more important to him. And that's fine. That's absolutely fine. Some managers will want to spend money every time somebody gets injured, just like, Pep Guardiola does. And more recently, potentially, Arteta has done. Spurs have done it in the past. And it's not for every team it's not for every manager, because he sees more the disruption, as opposed to the disruption of bringing players in and players leaving your club, as opposed to the thrill of the chase that some transfers and us as fans, Jesus Christ, the reason I love the transfer window is the thrill of the chase. Oh my God, we've been linked to this person. Can we get him? Can we sign him? That's really exciting, and that's where a lot of excitement comes from. But Unai Emery is he brings it up. He speaks about it openly, transparently. He's always said in transfer windows that they can be of disturbance, because there's more time probably spent on the phone. There's more time probably spent looking at potential incomings, as opposed to looking at opponents, looking at where you can find the margins where the current players that you have can thrive in. And for somebody who we call a professor, Everybody calls the professor. He's universally known. He's universally known as a professor of the game. He would much prefer, I would imagine, and this is just my thoughts on it, to be looking at where can I find the margins? Where can I currently get better, as opposed to having to look at footage of new players. Do they fit in? And you can go down an awful lot of blind alleys from that point of view as well, because of the control he likes to have. The short transfer window in January can, I would imagine, to him means long hours, long days, and less time. I won't say less time preparing, but less thought, less free time to think about preparation, as opposed to as opposed to preparing. So gets out ahead of those questions and answers them. I went tangential there. I completely know about it. I know I did, but let's hear if he follows up or gets asked any follow-up questions from what he mentioned there, specifically about the transfer market.
That work and response this week will be tested properly, won't it, against Bournemouth? And in November, you were very emphatically the winners at Villa Park. What's your assessment, therefore, of this return against Bournemouth?
Bournemouth is a really huge test. Why? For the circumstances we have now, after we lost at home. Why? Because how we are in the table, of course, performing overall fantastic, and in the top position, being third. And why? Because Bournemouth is a team you must respect always, massive respect, because they are a team demanding a lot. And the result they had at home, they lost 2-3 against Arsenal, 2-3, and they won 3-2 against Tottenham and 3-2 against Liverpool. Those 3 matches, 5 goals, winning 2 matches, losing 1. This is the analysis we have, and why, and of course then deeply to try to analyze why, and deeply analyze as well how we can get there our best performance. But being very difficult, and we this week we were busy, or we are busy, because we are trying to set again everything, okay, and try to get our good mood, because we need it and we had it. And again, we must recover it.
First pause even. So look, he mentions there about Bournemouth, and once again, I suppose going back to the transfer piece where he didn't even mention there, Bournemouth can't have been absolutely thrilled with the transfer window that they've had either, considering they lost Antoine Semenyo to Manchester City, albeit they've played a couple of games since he has moved on. They brought in the likes of Ryan. And they've obviously got the young striker Krupi firing at the top of that formation as well. So they're finding ways to combat losing players. They're finding ways to combat being able to sell their players like Semenyo and to replace them, whether it be with the likes of Adley, or whether it be playing Krupi with Ivan Nielsen to get that more attacking threat like they have been doing so far. Or maybe even playing, Smith and Jimenez there on that right hand side, or even bringing in Ryan, who they've bought recently as well. It's interesting for them, and they're an interesting, very very interesting club, with a really really interesting manager, and I'm sure Unai Emery has the utmost respect for him and what Bournemouth are doing. Let's play and let's go on.
Just to mention touch upon what you mentioned there, after having had so many games in such a short space of time, how beneficial has it been to have had this week on the training ground with the players and being able to work on things and reset?
I prefer to play a lot of matches, but when we can have some weeks free to work or recover some players after they are being injured, is the circumstance makes sense if we want to get some days to work and be free for matches. We are trying to set a new players. Of course, Leon Bailey and Douglas Luiz is easier, but they need again to adapt quick in the demands we have. Tammy Abraham, of course, he needs to adapt again or quick here, Birmingham, this training ground, but how we are setting our standards. And Allison is coming back progressively. And of course, we have 3 players in the middle, like Camara, Yuri, and McGinn out. Is a key. We have a key structure inside with the player we have. Of course, now with Amadou Onana, he was not 100% last week. With Lamar Bogarde, he is always doing his task and helping us a lot, but need continuing getting better. And Ross Barkley is coming back, very, very important, because he knows us, and he has the skill we need to play as a 8 number or 10 number. And then Douglas Luiz, he's come back. Of course, in 2 months, we are changing out in the middle, because in 2 months, in 2 weeks, because 2 weeks ago got injured Yuri Tielemans. And now we must, again, build our structure strong in the key position we have in the middle. But of course, we have enough players, and we must do it. And we must everybody help to get it.
Again, really insightful and not shying away from the question, I suppose there. Well, actually, he answered the question in the first probably 5 seconds afterwards, but he gave, again, an elevated answer, so that I suppose, like, there's a reason that this one is 9 minutes, and the one when Tyrone Mings sat in with him for the Salzburg one, that there was that one was 25 minutes. Unai's getting out ahead of answers here, and he's been very transparent and open, and I like it. Like he said there, he said essentially, look, I want to be playing matches, but he said at the same time, we do need to change our structure. We do need to solidify our structure. Our structure is gone, he said, because we've lost our whole keystone in the middle of midfield, and that's just truth, you know. To lose those 3 players is massive, and while it's, you know, I don't, it's not the reason that we didn't beat Brentford at the weekend. Building the structure, the converse of wanting to play a lot of games. I think he may have said it, but I didn't, not sure if I heard it. I think what he meant to say here was it's been good to have a week to build that structure, to get Amadou Onana, Lamar Bogart, Douglas Luiz in there, to get them working. Because they are different players to Kamara, Tielemans, and McGinn. But getting them in there, getting them in that structure, getting them used to it, finding out what they can and can't do, so that, you know, the game planning and I suppose scripting of certain situations can be done more effectively, more practice, for want of a better word, and to suit the skill set of the players that are there. So that is really interesting. It's going to be like it's in a way, you know, obviously we're going to need to weather the storm over the next 4 to 6 weeks without those players. But in a way, it could be a way of developing plan B and then obviously plan A when those guys come back, we revert back to it. And that might help us down the stretch. And it might actually help us a small bit more in European competition as well, if we do have that more hunkering ability that hopefully you would imagine, or you would be hopeful that we could develop with these 3 that are there. But you know, what he said there is true. The keystone of your structure in the middle of midfield, you've got 3 different tangibles in there that have all our idiosyncrasies and intangibles that you need to iron out on the training field to be able to insert it into the process that was there previously. So once again, very open from Unai Emery. Let's go on.
So now that the window is closed, how do you assess the overall balance of your squad?
Good, because we joined some players like we needed, and some players were left for different circumstances. But when I am seeing the squad, I can watch. We have good players to keep being demanding and to keep being consistent like we were before the transfer window with the player we joined. Thank you.
Hi, Unai. How's Ollie Watkins? Is he going to make it for tomorrow?
Yes, normally yes. He rested last week because he had a small injury and he was not ready to play. But this week, progressively, he was joining us, training normally, and today he trained normal.
You just touched on Amadou Onana there and the three big midfielders that you have missing. He's only played 55 of the 91 matches that Villa have had since he signed. How big could he be, particularly without the three that you mentioned? And how difficult has it been that he's not been available as much as you would have liked?
Wait a minute. I got to go back here. Look at this. See if I can catch the moment. There you go. So there we go. This is his demeanor listening to the question. And watch as it changes. Watch the little smirk that happens. Then the little smirk comes in. I was exactly the same because I'm like, nah, don't be throwing stuff like that at Unai. This is the unanswerable question. All he has to say is, what I would actually say to answer this question is, the lad's 6'6". He's big enough. He's big enough as it is. He doesn't need to be any bigger, and just move on. Like, you could ridicule this question in so many ways. Nah, I'm not here for that. I'm not having it. I'm not having that question. That's the obvious gotcha question that Unai spots a million miles away. Anyway, we'll listen to his answer.
As much as you would have liked.
The challenges we have and the challenge he has is to try to be consistent. Last year, this year, he's sometimes having a small injury. They are not long injury, but a small injury, 2, 3, 4 weeks, and not being consistent and available to play matches. But of course, he's very important, and his potential is still there. When he's playing ready and 100%, his performances is being fantastic, and I think progressing a lot in 1 year and a half. I think the last match playing, he was really playing fantastic. But the challenge I have with him is to be consistent playing in a row matches and not getting injured, small injuries. But as well, I must be intelligent with him to try to identify when he can have some risk with the doctor to play some matches in a row. This is the challenge we have.
And that's why I'm not a Premier League football manager, because Unai Emery answered it in the merits that it was, maybe not in the merits that it was asked, but he answered it in a very transparent and open way, talking about the injuries that he has had. I would have had a bit of fun with that one, to be honest with you, just the way the question was phrased. But yeah, look, an uneventful, I suppose, press conference, but one I think that, where he did go into a lot of detail and he did chat an awful lot, I suppose, about his thoughts and where the team is at the moment, and I always like to get that insight from Unai Emery. A couple of you guys are asking a quick question here. Obviously, he mentioned there that Ollie Watkins is back as well. I didn't stop it there because it was only a short answer, and we all knew Ollie was back anyway. Mentioned Ollie Watkins is back, and a lot of you guys are maybe saying that, start Tammy, bring on Watkins after 70 minutes at Bournemouth. I think we're in a beautiful position whereby, to me, I'm not really worried who starts, because I know that we've got 2 number 9s in there. And I would also be of the opinion that we will see both of them on the field at the same time for a period during this game, should we need to. And that's enthusing me a small bit as well, because I genuinely feel that if we had the option of bringing an Ollie Watkins on to play 2 up top against Brentford, so that we didn't have so many people who are naturally predisposed to just trying to run around to find space, and I mean that not in a derogatory way, but I mean that there are players that are creators, there are players that are space finders, and when you're trying to play against that low block, they want to give you space. Like, it's easy to find space there, but it's the space in the wide areas to pick up passes and to be more metronomic. Whereas if we had more players that could stand on the toes of defenders, I think that we may have had more opportunities, or more be able to create more chances, more opportunities to slip down the side of a defender, or whatever the case is, and somebody who's more comfortable playing with their back to goal. So if we are in the situation whereby we need to get a goal, I definitely think that we would see both of them up top at the weekend if needed. But hopefully we're not in that position, and hopefully Tammy Abraham gets off the schneid in his second game, gets his second stint back, and gets his opens his account for the second time for Aston Villa at the weekend. Whether it's coming off the bench or whether it's Ollie Watkins that starts. It was interesting as well that he mentioned there that Tammy Abraham is still acclimatizing, but he's acclimatizing quickly. So I don't know whether we read into that, whether he will start with Tammy or whether he will start with Ollie. But either or, I'm just happy to kind of have 2 9s. I would have preferred to have those 2 9s and Daniel Mallon, as I think every single football fan or every single Aston Villa fan would attest to. But alas, that is not the case. But I do think this team and I do think this squad needs 2 9s to be able to compete on one front, never mind 2 or 3 if we go so far in the FA Cup. So I'm happy that both of them are in there. And to be honest with you, I'm happy that currently, I'm happy with either of them should they start, because we have somebody that we can bring off the bench that is more of accustomed to playing in that number 9 position. Albeit I would like to have Daniel Mallon as well to play from that right, or even to play just behind him too. But alas, that is not the case. Anyway, I will be back again tomorrow, guys, with Team Sheet Tantrum at 1:45 for the Bournemouth game. I'll be on my own, so bring your comments, bring your enthusiasm, or bring your disappointment, whichever one it is, whatever emotion you wish to bring with you, and we will chat through it in the pre-match for the Team Sheet Tantrum, should I say, for Bournemouth, and then I'll also be back with you again for a post-match directly afterwards tomorrow in what is an almost alien time of 3 p.m. for kickoff on a Saturday. So hope you'll join me for that. And in the meantime, everybody, go and enjoy your Friday. Stay safe, stay healthy, and all that's left to say is up the Villa.